What is going on, guys, and welcome to this YouTube video. Today we're going to talk about all things Porsche 992.1 generation of cars. This is actually the second part of my series where I gave you an extensive buyer's guide and model overview over the Porsche 992.1 generation. Last week, if you've missed the video, please click on the upper right hand corner because we've already discussed the base cars, the Carrera versions. We've talked about Carrera, Carrera S and Carrera GTS, and I've gave you an overview of all the different options and colors which were available for those cars. Today we're going to talk about Turbo, GT3 and GT3 RS. My name's Nicholas and I've set myself the goal to buy my first Porsche 992 before GTA 6. On this channel, I'm actually documenting my life, my journey, and of course, my big love for the brand Porsche. So let's have no further ado and let's start right into the video. So let's start with the first model, the Turbo and the Turbo S, the almighty Turbo. Of course, this is an iconic badge and the 992 version is no example. The Turbo has 581 horsepower and the Turbo S, of course, 650 horsepower, and both cars were offered as a coupe and of course as a cabriolet, and of course Turbo always since 964 is a all-wheel drive car. And talking about all the different options which were available for the car. The Turbo itself, they had a lot of options which were standard. Turbos always have the Sports Chrono package, you didn't have to opt in for that, and the Turbo S always came with the Porsche carbon ceramic brakes, which were an optional extra for the Turbos and the Carrera cars. The Turbo S always has the ceramic brake as a no-cost option, and also the Bose sound system. The Bose sound system wasn't standard for the Turbo and the base cars, so you always had to opt that in. The Turbo S had that as a standard. So let's talk about all the different options which you were able to spec and which are, in my opinion, a must-have and a nice-to-have. For me, the Turbo should always have a lift system because the Turbo is a car which costs well above 200,000 euros. So lift system is very important for resale because Turbo S especially, usually people spec it to the absolute max. So lift system is certainly an option which should be spec'd for the car. And for the coupe, I would also go for a car which has the optional roof mechanism, so glass sunroof, because this is a very important option. Most of the cars have it. Of course, there are some Turbo S coupes with the lightweight option, which were very rare. They actually had a carbon fiber roof, but this is not the norm. I would always go for the glass sunroof because this is your best bet for resale values. And then you always had the sports exhaust. Of course, for the Turbo, the normal exhaust was with the 4 pipes, which had the more iconic Turbo look. But the sports exhaust system, it is, in my opinion, mandatory because it sounds way better. Of course, if you've only heard Porsche 992s via video and not in real life, you might think that they all sound like a vacuum cleaner. But let me tell you, in real life, from the interior, those cars sound phenomenal. The turbo induction nose is great and they are just phenomenal from the sound perspective. And the sports exhaust gives you a much more dramatic feeling and some crackles for the downshifts in sport mode. So I would always certainly go for the sports exhaust. And now let's go to the recommended or nice to have options. There was actually a sports design package or aero package for the Turbo, which in my opinion looks incredible. It makes the car even more dramatic from the exterior. It looks much more muscular. It has a very mean stance and it really depends, in my opinion, on the spec you are going for. If you have a sporty spec, for example, a colorful car or a crayon car, maybe even with a stripe on the side doors or maybe on the hood, the sports aerodynamic package really gives you that extra stance, that extra dramatic look. But when you go more into the classic direction of spec, I would personally try to find a car which is much more common, that doesn't have the aero package, because it has a cleaner and more timeless look. What I would personally go for is the exclusive design wheel. This wheel looks like the 991 1.2 generation exclusive series rim, which was introduced back then with the golden details. For the 992, it had the black with chrome details. This is a very attractive option, but nevertheless the center lock turbo design wheels, which we already discussed for the Porsche Carrera, the 992 Carrera GTS, was also a very common option, and you could certainly go for either one of those. There was actually also the turbo wheel, which was a lot more rare, and I think in my opinion the normal turbo center lock wheel and the exclusive design wheel is the best option for you, and of course for resale values as well. Then what many people went for is the Burmester sound system. I personally think that the Burmester sound system is a bit overkill for the 911 because the cabin is small. I think in the Panamera and the Cayenne it has a lot more room in order to work, in order to build a big atmosphere. But I think, yeah, turbo customers, or especially Turbo S customers, they always try to reach for the maximum level. So a lot of people went for the Burmester sound system. So you will be able to find a lot of versions online with the optional Burmester sound system. I think this was like a €4,500 option here in Germany, so relatively costly. Then what you could do on the turbos and the side parts, there were air vents for the turbo induction, and normally they are relatively cheap, non-lacquered parts of the car. So you could either decide to have that in the body color of that car, so maybe Gentian blue or GT silver, or in high gloss black. And I would personally try to find an example with color on those side air inlets, because it makes the car look even more premium, and the standard air inlets, they look a bit cheap, if I dare to say. Then 90-liter tank. This is also a very important option, because if you have that option and you go for a long trip, for example, you have a phenomenal range, and I would personally not want to miss those comforts that brings you when you have this extensive range. I think you can go like 850 kilometers when you go relatively easy, for example, in the south of France or in Italy, when you go 120 on the highway. So this is a very nice option to have there. And what for me is a very nice configuration, if you manage to find an example with the exclusive Manufaktur interior. This was very rare, and when you find an example with the cognac interior, this is a phenomenal option in my opinion. It looks exactly like the Sport Classic interior, but when you have it as a Turbo S Cabriolet, and you for example have a crayon or black exterior and that cognac heritage design Manufaktur interior, it looks incredible. There are very few cars online which have this interior, which in my opinion, if you find one and it fits the budget, this is a very nice option to have, because for resale this makes the car very, very rare. Yeah, let's talk about colors. Of course, you had a whole variety of normal solid colors, the normal blacks, the normal whites, of course. You had the metallic colors like GT silver, like black metallic, of course. You had Guards red, you had Gentian blue, you had agate gray, you had aventurine green. So you had a lot of conservative colors, and of course chalk or crayon, which were relatively popular here in Europe, and also the carmine red. I would personally try to go for a more conservative spec for the Turbo S, because a lot of the customers are older age, I would say, and they try to go for the maximum in everything, but not really extroverted, they're just a little bit more subtle. So go for a nice black, gray or white color, which makes it a very nice bet for you for daily driving and also for the resale values. So let's continue with the GT3. The GT3 is your access point into the GT department of the 911 model lineup and is a very attractive option, of course. As for the 991 generation, we have seen in the 992 generation the winged normal GT3 and also the touring version. However, there was a very important difference between 991 and 992 because in 991 generation of Porsche GT3s, you could go for manual and PDK in the winged car, and the touring car only offered the manual gearbox. For the 992 variant, you could either go for touring or the winged car, and you could choose PDK or manual gearbox. And I think we really have to differentiate those two cars because they, of course, are technically relatively identical, but they fit a different purpose. So let's first start with the winged car. The winged car should, in my opinion, be a PDK car because it fits more of the ethos of the car. This is a racy version of the 911. It is made for the track, but also relatively usable on the public road. It has a boot in the front. It has space behind the seats. So it is, track orientated, of course, and it really does fit the PDK gearbox, in my opinion. I would probably try to find an example with the Club Sports package, which is very important for resale values on GT3s and also for the, of course, the bucket seat, the 918 Spider bucket seat. There were some people which spec the winged car with the normal 18-way adjustable comfort seats, which, each to their own, but in my opinion, it doesn't fit to the car. And when you look online, those examples that have the comfort seats, they have a hard time selling. So go for a full bucket seat car, 918 Spider car, Club Sport package, and of course, all the track orientated options, which are relatively important for that car. Lift system is important. I would always go for the lift system. Also for resale because it's a very low car and I think you will have a hard time when you do not have the lift system. 90-liter tank, of course, is a very important option for the car because especially for the winged car, if you're tracking the car and you have a whole higher fuel consumption, you're standing at the gas station all of the time, so 90-liter tank gives you more time. Sports chrono package is important, and of course the advanced leather package, which makes the dashboard also in high quality leather. So the winged car, track orientated, so in my opinion the winged car also benefits from a little bit more extroverted colors like reds, yellows, crayon. A lot were black, of course. Black with the red decals was also a very popular choice, but those would be my perfect configurations for the GT3 wing car. Of course, for nice to have, you could go for the Porsche carbon ceramic brakes, which it depends on the use case. Of course, the carbon ceramic brakes are a lot better, especially when you brake from 200 kilometers an hour down to 50, you really feel that the carbon ceramic brake doesn't have a hard time. You can do it over and over and over. They don't overheat as easily, so it is a performance orientated option, but it depends how you use your car. If you use it on a daily basis, you maybe go out for nice mountain drives on the weekend and sometimes on the track, try to find one with the carbon ceramic brake because it will give you the most performance possible. If you plan to use your GT3 only for track driving, I would personally go for the steel brakes, not because of the performance, but because of your personal economics, because when you have to renew your carbon ceramic brakes, all four, you're looking at 25,000 euros of repairment bill. So of course the steel brakes are a lot less expensive for your driving. So if you do a lot of track stuff, the steel brake is probably the more economical option. Then what would be a nice option to also have is the Matrix LED light up front and also the exclusive design rear light. This is of course a personal choice, a personal preference. If it fits to your spec, then just stay with the red light bar in the back, and if it better fits your spec, then go for the exclusive design crayon rear light. So those were, in my opinion, the best specs or the recommendations for the GT3 wing car. Now, what about the touring specification? The touring specification was introduced for the 991.2 because the 991.1 generation, they only had the PDK for GT3, and a lot of purists, they were raging about that. I can personally understand that because the 7-speed manual, of course, is an incredible gearbox for the GT3. Then they introduced the 911R for the 991.1 generation, and I think, in my opinion, Porsche saw how incredible prices 911Rs achieved on the second-hand market. So they introduced the 991.2 GT3 Touring as manual only, and in the 992.1 you had the choice of manual or the PDK gearbox. So of course this comes down to your personal preference. From my personal experience, most of the cars you will find online will have the PDK gearbox, because of course when you look at resale, when you get the car new from Porsche, you will have a bigger audience to resell your car to, because manual gearbox, this is a dying breed, but a very passionate breed, of course. So go for the gearbox you personally prefer the most. You will have a big enough audience for both to sell your car to when you eventually decide to move on from that car. So in my opinion, my perfect touring would be manual gearbox with the comfort seat. We talked about the race seat, the carbon bucket seat for the winged car, which is mandatory there. I think the ethos of the manual GT3 Touring better fits to the comfort adjusted seat, so I would go for that combination. And more of the I would say comfort configuration. So comfort seats. I would probably go for the advanced leather package in the inside, nice conservative color on the outside, because GT3 Touring, it's not about shouting, it's about knowing who you are, but do not having the urge to communicate what kind of potential you have. So it's a very purist car, it's a car for the driver, so it really benefits from standard normal conservative colors. And if you manage to find a PTS example in preferably green, you will have a very nice car, because green, of course, in the last 5 years has become even increasingly popular, and especially for the touring variants, this is a very nice combination that you would get. So I would personally go for, when you can, a green PTS car, manual gearbox, normal sport seats, silver rims, and the carbon ceramic brake in yellow. So this would be my perfect option for the GT3 Touring as a manual car. Okay, let's talk about the car which probably most of you guys have been waiting for, which is of course the mighty 992 GT3 RS. The GT3 RS, in my opinion, is one of the most popular or even internet famous variants of the 992 generation, because I think of the extreme exterior design, a lot of young people really gravitate towards that car, and I think there are some bigger influencers, YouTubers, and video people out there which really made the GT3 RS very popular. So this is a car which is a halo car for most of the people nowadays. So GT3 RS, of course, 6-liter 4.0 liter boxer engine, 525 horsepower, and of course is a naturally aspirated car, 15 horsepower more than the GT3s. And this one is only available as a PDK, which makes, of course, most sense. So when we look into specs, it is relatively different how you go into the car. So are you looking at that car as a collector's item, or do you want to use it as a track toy? That's why I have two different answers for you today. So if you try to get a GT3 RS to use it as your primary track toy, then I would probably go for a relatively base option. Not even necessarily with the Weissach package, because of course you had the option to go for the Weissach package, which was around 30,000 euros an option, and then you could also opt for the magnesium wheels, which were even more expensive. So you were looking at a premium of around 45,000 euros, and when you look at or using it as a track toy, those like 15 or 20 kilograms you're saving, you do not really feel it. So when you're looking at a track car for yourself, don't necessarily go for the Weissach package. Go for the Club Sport package, of course, with the roll cage. The roll cage is mandatory for the car. Club Sport package is mandatory, and of course your 918 Spyder wheels. I told you for GT3 wing car, this is already the most popular option for the seats. But when you buy a GT3 RS with the comfort seats, you have lost control. I'm sorry to tell you, but this is an option which shouldn't be ticked, and there are a few cars, and I have no idea what market exists for those cars. So yeah, it's relatively narrow, so go for the most sporty option, of course, Club Sport package, the 918 Spyder wheels. Roll cage, you had the option for going for the standard steel roll cage or the carbon fiber roll cage. If you intend to use the car as a track tool, I would personally recommend going for the steel roll cage. Why, you would ask? Because the steel roll cage is much more narrow in size. The carbon roll cage, the tubes are like this big, and as you might know, the GT3 RS doesn't have a boot in front, so you only have the space available behind your seats. So in the carbon roll cage, you are not able to put huge items through, so the steel roll cage gives you more possibilities to maybe put a helmet behind your seats in order to go to the racetrack, for example. So definitely go for a roll cage. It's the steel version, your 918 Spyder seats, Club Sport package, lift system, mandatory of course, and if you can find it, the leather interior, because of course this is a premium car. It maybe weighs like 5K more, but yeah, it gives it a bit more premium feeling in the inside. 90-liter tank, of course, even more important if you're tracking the car in order to not constantly go to the gas station. And yeah, so these are the important factors. I would go for a relatively basic color on the outside, maybe a black, maybe a white. The non-Weissach cars have the fully painted front bonnet, so you will be able to differentiate between a Weissach and a non-Weissach car, and this would be my personal recommendation for you if you're planning to track the car. Regarding brakes, of course, standard are the steel brakes, and optional the carbon ceramic brakes. If you're intending to track it really hard, go for the steel ones and save yourself the headache of replacing your carbon ceramic brakes. Those were my recommendations for the track toy. Now let's talk about GT3 RS as more as a statement or collector's piece. As a statement or a collector's piece, of course, the Weissach version, the Weissach package is very, very, very important. And Weissach cars, even now, 2 years after the first cars were delivered, it is still fetching premiums, not as huge as they used to, but they're still fetching premiums. So I would go for a Weissach car. I would, in the inside go, of course, for the bucket seats, Club Sport package, go for the carbon roll cage, not because you need it, but because it looks cool and you can brag to your friends that you have a carbon roll cage. Of course, I would definitely go for the carbon ceramic brake in this case, because you want the highest possible option in order to further increase your halo status for the car. And those would be my recommendations. You could choose between the standard rear light, of course, and the of course exclusive design light. Bose sound system is a nice option if you really want to maximize your spec and you're planning to use it on the road. So this would be my recommendation for the halo config for the GT3 RS. So let's talk about colors for GT3 RS. Of course, most of the cars were spec'd in the normal color variant, so black, white, crayon, and those more simple colors. But if you're going for a statement piece, of course, or you want a collector's item, try to stretch to a PTS color. When you're looking on the new market, when you were lucky enough to get a GT3 RS allocation from the factory, the PTS option, if you were able to get one, was a non-negotiable in my opinion, because the overs this car fetched, or the status this car gained, was even higher than for the standard colors. And yeah, of course, greens, like I just told you, are a very nice option for the GT3 RS. But in my opinion, a GT3 RS, it really benefits from a very loud and a very shouty exterior color. So when going PTS, green is a historical, conservative, classy color. I would probably go for a Gulf Orange or something screamy like that, because I personally think this really fits the car. Or maybe a blue, like a Meissen blue, Gulf blue or something. This would be an ideal spec for the GT3 RS. And of course, in this case, go for the optional magnesium wheels, because it further improves your halo status and gives the car the most extroverted and the most expensive feeling and the best overall spec when you try to look at it as a halo car or a collector's item. And with this, we are already done with my full Porsche 992.1 generation buyer's guide and model overview. If you haven't seen the first video, click the link up here and watch all the different informations about the base cars, the base Carreras. Of course, we went into a lot more detail because in the base cars, there were a lot more spec options possible. Today we talked about Turbo, GT3, GT3 RS. Of course, they are positioned way above the Carrera models, so most of those models already had many options as standard, which are optional extras for the Carrera cars. So I hope you guys enjoyed this buyer's guide, and now I'm really eager to get to know from you what would be your car of choice for the 992. Would you go for the daily driver as in Carrera, or sporty daily driver GTS Turbo S, or are you more into your track orientated, naturally aspirated stuff like the GT3 or even the GT3 RS? Please comment down below what would be your ideal choice. For me, I'm currently looking at Carrera S and GTS. For me, the most attractive option when you look at price and what you get for the price is of course the GTS, which ticks a lot of boxes for me. So the GTS is my most favorite model of the 992.1 generation of cars. And now let's have no further to do. Let's subscribe to the channel, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care and cheers.